President Cyril Ramaphosa says that all those who are proven to have done wrong in the concerns raised by KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkkwanazi will be dealt with thoroughly in terms of the country's laws. The president was speaking to the media at the end of the BRICS Summit, which ended in Rio Jenairo in Brazil. General Mkkwanazi alleged that the police service has been infiltrated by criminal syndicates. He also accused Police Minister Senzo Mchunu of having constant communication with criminal syndicates and of disbanding the political killing task team for no reason. President Ramaphosa says that the allegations are serious as they have implications for national security. Now, to help us discuss this further, we are joined virtually now by former Western Cape Police Commissioner Dr. Lennit and a senior researcher at the Centre for Criminology at the University of Cape Town, Dr. Simon Howell. Gentlemen, thanks and welcome to both of you here on Morning Live. I first just want to get a brief reaction from both of you after that briefing by Lieutenant General Mkwhanazi on Sunday and what each of you made of that. Starting with you, Dr. Howell.
Well, I think, the allegations are serious and they have quite serious implications for the way in which SAPS and politics as a whole does business, but they're not surprising in some sense. What for me was serious and was surprising was the optics, was the way in which he chose to do this. It's not simply about declaring that there have been allegations of corruption, but the presentation of these allegations in a full combat outfit and in front of others who are also heavily armed and the like presents a very specific type of picture around the way in which he sees policing and the way in which he sees his mission in revealing these secrets to others.
Dr. Max?
Yes, I totally agree with those remarks. And my question is, as provincial commissioners, our line of communication is to the National Commissioner. I wonder whether the National Commissioner actually granted him to go ahead to have such a media press release on Sunday. So it might be that he doesn't have confidence in the internal communication channels and thought that if he goes with internally, that the allegations will be covered up.
So to that point, Dr. Max, if, as you say, potentially or perhaps he didn't have faith in the internal structures, what would that lead him to next? Did he have any sort of obligation, given the serious nature of the allegations that were revealed, to perhaps inform the president of his concerns?
Yes, of course. That is also an option if he doesn't have, confidence in his internal communication structures to approach the president about these allegations, because the minister is also involved in these allegations. And but I think in the absence of any steps or a particular statement from the National Commissioner, because he's quiet with regards to the press conference. He didn't say that Mkkwanazi didn't have his permission to conduct such a press conference. So it appears to me there was some sort of an understanding between the two, that this is the best way actually to put these allegations out, publicly.
Dr. Howell, what does that say about the state of play within the South African Police Service, if indeed what Dr. Max says is possibly what could have happened, but also the fact that the president didn't seem to indicate that he was aware of these allegations before that particular press briefing? At least it doesn't seem like that off the bat. What does that mean then, if even the president is not aware of these very serious allegations of what may be going on in South Africa's law enforcement environment?
Well, I think on the one hand, there is clearly politics at play here, in the sense that whether he was granted permission or whether he didn't have permission, there's clearly political lines being drawn in the sand here, in which the statement was not simply a statement by one individual trying to bring to light information, but was actually a political maneuver so as to align himself with specific individuals or specific, organizations alike. So, it's once more, policing has essentially become very political. And while it's always been political, in this instance, these overtures towards formal politics and politicians ultimately undermines policing and undermines people's trust in or confidence in law enforcement, because once more, I think the attention is being diverted away from the key issues within policing and about policing. And once more, we're focusing on the politicians and the politics of policing. So there is, for me, that's one of the big concerns, again, that these sorts of theaters of politics undermine both the public confidence in the police, but also undermine our focus on what are the clear and needed areas of engagement that the police need to focus on themselves.
Which are what, would you say, Dr. Howell?
Well, clearly significant levels of high crime, very low trust in the police, and continued and ongoing concerns around community violence. And these are things that affect everyone in their day-to-day lives, and ultimately to a number of the government departments, but specifically the police, in terms of providing safe and secure environments for people to live. And those are big concerns that need to be dealt with the full attention of the police.
Dr. Max?
Can I add to that?
Sure.
Yes. Yeah, I just want to say, it is alleged that the National Minister of Police issued a letter in disbanding the task team which investigate the political killings in KwaZulu-Natal. Now, if that is true, now my question is on what is the basis on which the minister acted? Because according to Mkkwanazi, that particular task team was very, very successful and was about to uncover this whole so-called, in his words, a cartel. So, and there was communication subsequently, communication between the minister and a particular person with a criminal intent with regards to a contract which was awarded to him and then cancelled. And the minister didn't, according to Mkwhanazi, didn't respond to that particular person, information which they got on the cell phones of those individuals. Now, if that is the case, that will be a clear indication that there's political interference in the operations of the police, which cannot be tolerated. The minister's mandate arrived from the Section 206 of the Constitution, and that is with regards to direction and policy and not operations. In terms of Section 207 of the Constitution, the President is the person who appoints a national commissioner to take control of the operations and to manage the police as a whole. So it might be, if that is true, that the minister instructed without reasonable cause the closing of the such unit. It might indicate of political interference with a particular agenda.
But does the minister have the right to actually do that, Dr. Howell? Because from the statutes that you've just stated there, Dr. Max, was the minister overreaching? Is it within his ambit to actually do what he did? And at the time, I remember General Mkkwanazi coming out and basically also questioning that. So was the minister within his rights to do that, Dr. Howell?
Well, I think, the precedent was set by Tsele in the past in the overreaching of the police ministry into the operational matters of the police. And I think, as has been said, there's a clear definition and a clear divide here between the commissioner who is in charge of operations and the minister who is in charge of policy. And in this instance, this is clearly an operational matter. And if the minister had engaged with and directly indicated that things need to be changed, then there is a clear example of overreach here. But it ultimately, it's not as simple as that, because it may be that he ordered someone to do it that was based in the operational side of things, or he may have done it another way. But the key point here is that there is clearly a blurred line between policy and the ministerial and the commissioner and the operational logic of SAPS. And those roles need to be defined far more specifically to prevent this type of thing happening in the first place.
And then to the point about crime intelligence, Dr. Max, and, Dr. Howell speaks about focusing on the issues that need attention on the ground and prioritizing those. Crime intelligence and the arrest of some of the officials a few weeks ago and how that has played out. Mkwhanazi addresses this particular matter, but then, kind of indicates that there may be something more at play here.
Yes, of course. We know that crime intelligence is in the ICU for a long time in South Africa because instead of concentrating on criminality and the safety of the country, they were used in the past to spy on, the politicians, to get dirty dirt on the politicians which they could use in elections. Yes, crime intelligence, we have experienced that a lieutenant general in charge of crime intelligence and 4 major generals and a brigadier were arrested last week, for various crimes, alleged crimes. So that there is a need for a total overhaul, not only in crime intelligence, but the police. I think the president must use this opportunity with 2 type of investigations. An investigation team to investigate the allegations of General Mkhwanazi on a speedily basis, and other investigation, like the Farlam Commission, etc., to investigate the rot in the police, because the problems in the police didn't start Sunday. It comes on a long time in the police. So whilst I was there with Jackie Selebe, and those who actually follow after Jackie Selebe are police commissioners which who didn't have any police experience, and and they did things according to them, and that is the reason why the police is at the stop street where they are at the moment.
Dr. Howell, if you'd like to weigh in there, because they also went on to, look into things like yesterday, the security cluster in Parliament, that committee that gave a briefing, they were talking about these matters that were raised. But one of the issues here is also the vetting of the members of the crime intelligence and how long that takes. And it reminds me of a portfolio committee briefing where they were discussing KGB Sitole or Captain Morris Chabalala and how he was meant to be in prison but somehow found himself employed in crime intelligence and found himself, going through the ranks, was later arrested again. But that was so glaring, and it speaks to how defective things seem to be.
Yeah, I completely agree. There is a clear need in terms of crime intelligence itself to thoroughly review and ultimately reformulate what the crime intelligence division does and how they do it. Because, it's been a thorn in the side of SAPS and a thorn in the side in the country's ability to protect itself for many, many years now. And, we can trace that narrative back all the way to Celebi and the like. So there is an ongoing need for that. But, as has been mentioned, I think SAPS is at a critical juncture where we need to begin a conversation around what we want from the police service and how the police ought to operate and how they ought to conduct business, so as that they both effectively provide safety and security to citizens, but also sort of disentangle themselves from the politics around, or the formal politics that continually undermines and sort of draws attention away from their core issues. And that, that has everything to do with, at an operational level, talking about how we define what successful policing is and how we measure it, but also at a broader level and at a higher level, defining out who we allow to command and who we allow to be in control of SAPS. Because at the moment, it seems that we sort of limped from one bad issue to another, without clear and effective leadership. And SAPS is by virtue of its hierarchical structure, requires clear and considered leadership from the get-go, and that remains to be a concern.
Dr. Max, just to wrap it up,
Yep.
We have less than a minute, and I want you to weigh in on that, and also the fact that, as Mkwhanazi alleged, this goes right across. It's not just in terms of the security cluster. He talks about politicians in Parliament currently who may be involved in all of this. So how do we fix it?
Yes, of course. If you look at the National Development Plan 2030, Chapter 12, it is clearly recommended that the police, national commissioner and the deputies should be appointed by a panel. Now, it didn't say an independent panel like what happened in the case of the National Prosecuting Authority head. The appointment was an independent panel. My suggestion is, and that is what I also recommended in my research, is that independent panel should interview the candidates for the National Commissioner as well as deputies and make recommendations to the president, instead of having your minister who handpicked, his favorite candidate, so that he can manage that particular person. And alternatively, if that is not acceptable, then obviously interviews by Parliament, which make then the recommendation to the national, to the president, to ensure independence of the police.